So he always told me, do something that you love and your life will be a lot easier.
Today we're going to talk to student Evan Geiger about his plan to become a sports broadcaster and how ACC has helped him find an internship to achieve his goal. So what brought you into communications to begin with? What was the draw to that?
I've always been into sports, and I've always known that I wanted to work in sports, and it just kind of came out that I thought being like a play-by-play broadcaster or a radio talk show host, something of that nature would be the path for me. And so that's what I knew I wanted to do for a long time, since I was probably 17. I'm 25 now, so 8 years I've known.
Okay. Were you going to school for anything before, or has this kind of been what you've been pursuing from the beginning?
This is, like I said, since I was in high school, I knew this is what I wanted to do. Right out of high school, I started going to Alvin Community College. And then there was probably like a 4 or 5 year period where I didn't do any school at all. Life happens. And then I came back. Yeah. I moved back to Texas. I'm originally from Louisiana. Okay. So I moved back to Texas, and I came back 2 days before they shut everything down for COVID. So it was kind of, I knew I wanted to go to Alvin, and I came up here, I think, to try to see what I can find out about getting into class. And they were like, yeah, the campus is closed, like nobody's here, all that. And then, one way or another, got back into it, and it's been a good process.
Okay. You say this is what you wanted to do. What drew you to it? What did you, or like, what kind of inspired you to want to be that?
I've always felt like I know a lot about sports. I really watch sports very often, and I feel like I watch it maybe in a little bit of a different way than most people do. A lot of people watch sports, and they might sit there with some food and maybe a beverage, and they sit there and enjoy the game.
They want the conflict, basically, right?
Yeah.
The win and the lose, basically.
Yeah. And for me, it was always like, I don't just watch my favorite team. I don't just watch, my favorite players. Like, I watch all the games. Like, I'll watch the Minnesota Twins and the Miami Marlins on a Wednesday at noon. Whereas
you'd be the only one.
Yes. Sure. Yes. And that's just how I've always been. And I knew that sports was a passion for me. And my father worked in a chemical plant for years, and he loved sports too. But he said, I work and I do this to make money, and it's what you got to do. But he's like, this is not my passion, And he said, he always told me, do something that you love, and your life will be a lot easier.
Yeah. So, was there a particular sport that you feel like you were going to draw yourself to, or did you just kind of feel like, or did you see yourself more as like a Bob Costas, Joe Buck kind of person, where it was you could hop between sports?
Yeah, I've always been a baseball, basketball, football guy. Mm-hmm. Like, those are my three sports, and no offense to anyone else that likes any other sports, but I'm just not as interested in the other sports. Like, I've had opportunities to maybe do like a swim meet or like a soccer game, and it just doesn't interest me. And it's not something I'm as knowledgeable about. I feel like I would be doing a disservice to those watching.
You need to know the nuances of the sport. Yes. To be an effective commentator.
Yes.
So what is it about the commentating that you like, though? What is it about, like you say, you watch it differently than most people would watch a game. So what is it about the commentation that you enjoy, or what is it that kind of inspired you to be a commentator?
Well, I think sports are there's so much good in sports, especially because I broadcast a lot of like high school football games and JUCO baseball games, and there's so much passion. There's so many good things that come from it. You talk about leadership, character. So many of these things come from sports. How many people in the world today, how many CEOs played high school football and learned what it's like to be a team, and learned what it's like to like go through adversity and how to overcome that. And a lot of this stuff translates to the real world and our after athletics careers, and to see these guys with all the passion they have, and it's just so much fun when you see that game's winning touchdown or that walk-off home run. It's like electricity, like courses through your veins.
So do you see yourself more of a radio type commentator, or somebody more in a visual format, like a video?
Well, I have a face for radio, but if I can broadcast
ditto.
If I can broadcast a game, if you watch, you have Joe Buck and John Smoltz, or Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, and they'll show them from time to time on TV. But for the most part, I think my voice is the better skill than my face.
So how did you get involved with TSN? And explain kind of what that is and kind of what you do.
So I work for a company called TSRN. It's Texas Sports Radio Network, and so we broadcast high school football games and JUCO baseball games. That's our big things. We also do some other high school sports. We have contracts with certain schools to do whatever sports they have, whether it be swimming, volleyball, soccer, whatever the case may be. And we even do some high school basketball, some JUCO basketball, and so actually, Mr. Nichols here at the communication department, last season, and I think for years and years before, for the radio station here, 89.7, they would air a football game every Friday.
Right.
So whenever the fall started, we were in class, and it was all via Zoom or Microsoft Teams, whatever. And Mr. Nichols had mentioned, I think it was audio production. So he says, we do this for the football games, and so that just kind of caught my interest, and so I stayed after class after everybody left, and I said, what is this football game thing you were talking about? He was like, well, we broadcast high school football games. And I said, what do I have to do to get in on that? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I need to go. I need to see the setup. I need to, just please. And he was like,
to be involved.
Yeah. He said, okay, you can go. He said, I'll tell the guys that do the games that you're coming, and I'll make sure it's all good. So I went to the first game, and I just kind of sat there and watched. And then I said, that was awesome. Can I go to another one? He said, sure. The guys that I had met, the broadcasters, they said, yeah, you're welcome anytime. So I said, all right, I'm going to be there week 2, of course. So I go, and I brought a bunch of paper and pencils, and I said, you know what, guys, nobody was keeping stats for y'all last game, and your broadcast severely lacks stats. So I'm going to keep stats for you. So I kept stats for him. And then that was week 2. And then at halftime, they were like, let's see that stat paper. So I handed it to him. One thing that I think is really key in this is I have very, very bad handwriting. So they couldn't read my handwriting. So they passed me the headset and said, you're going to have to do the stat report. I was like, me? I don't
That
know.
was your plan all along, though, wasn't it?
It wasn't, but I wish I could say that it was, because it worked out perfectly. And so they passed me the headset, and I think it was the next week Mr. Nichols had brought a headset for me specifically, and they were like, you can do a stat report. And then I think by week 5 or so, I was like the third commentator. We had a play-by-play guy, a color commentator, and then I was another color commentator. Well, the play-by-play guy also worked for TSRN, and they had mentioned to him, hey, we need some other people. And he said, well, I have a guy full of energy. He knows his stuff, but he's very new to this. And they said, okay, we'll bring him in and we'll do a tryout. And so I went, and I did color for him while he did play-by-play for them. And they were like, you're really good. Like, we want to hire you. I was like, okay, cool. So they were like, come over, get all this equipment from us. You'll have all your stuff. I'm like, all right. So they send me to a game, and I get there, and I realize I'm by myself. And I have to do play-by-play for a game all by myself. And I was like...
And your own color and your own stats.
Everything. And I was like, I was speaking like 2% of the time before with 89.7 KACC. And now I have to broadcast the whole game. But I did it, and I didn't really like practice per se. I wasn't like... I had never even thought about like being a play-by-play guy and like what was I going to say and what was my trademark, saying and all this. And it just kind of happened, and it just came out.
Just dropped you in the fire, basically.
Yeah. And it just worked. And they were like, that was amazing. And I was like...
Was it kind of really difficult not having somebody to play off of when you're having a conversation with someone, or no? Or was it a challenge at first, you think?
I think it was a challenge at first, but I think what anybody who knows me knows is that I can talk a lot, and that anyone else talking is just taking away from my airtime.
Well, I will say this: with the explosion of data in sports right now, maybe that might be a good niche to try to pursue right there in your career. I would imagine keeping track of all that. So
yeah, I mean, I do the baseball games here for Alvin Community College and a lot of the other junior colleges, and so we have a camera that's kind of stationary, and so I don't move it too much, but we have a computer that runs the scoreboard on the screen, so I have to work with that. I have to keep score on a book like you would for a baseball game if you were like the shortstop's mom, and that's the kind of thing you did, and I also have to broadcast it, and so. It's a lot at once, but I mean, yeah, I think if I make it up higher, those guys have stat guys and people in their ears telling them, hey, this guy's batting 322 or whatever, and that would be cool to not have to do it all by yourself.
So now that you kind of have this experience, and now that and it's professional experience in addition to your education, where do you hope to kind of go from here? Like, first of all, with your education, how do you hope to finish your education?
Well, I have 2 classes left for the spring semester here at Alvin. It's going to be TV production 2, and I think radio and TV news. And then I am done at Alvin, and I will graduate with an associate's and then transfer to U of H. And it'll be kind of the same thing. I mean, I have all these other, like, side jobs and stuff that I've gotten over the past year or two from being in this experience. So I'll continue to work those, and then I'll go to U of H, and I know they, like, some of the students will help work with, like the football games, and that they'll run camera or audio boards or whatever they do. Some people run replay, so I know the students can get involved with that. And kind of hoping with that happening, maybe I could diversify, because I've always been the play-by-play broadcaster or the color commentator. I haven't been a cameraman as much. I haven't. You kind of want to learn more of the aspects of the broadcast, not just the commentating. I want to diversify, and I want to learn as much as I can so that I can always have a job in the field no matter what, even if nobody wants to hire me to be a play-by-play guy. So what is your ultimate kind of career goal? Where do you hope to kind of end up once you finish? Yeah, I mean, I think I have big dreams and big aspirations. I want to be – I'm not sure if I would want to be like the play-by-play broadcaster of the Chicago Cubs specifically and do all Cubs games, or if I would want to be like Joe Buck and just work for Fox and do whatever game they tell me to. I'm not sure which is more interesting. I think the realistic way of looking at it is that I'll probably take whatever job is offered to me. I think there's not as many jobs in this industry. I mean, you have what, 120 out of baseball, basketball, football. There's 92 pro teams. So, I mean, there's 92 play-by-play guys. And then you have a couple guys. I mean, it seems like Joe Buck is doing 7 games a week. So there's only 5, 6, 7 of those guys. And then you have some colleges. And, I honestly would take many opportunities. I like to be a yes man. I like to take whatever is offered to me, Well, I think, like many fields, though, I think a lot of it's diversifying. A lot of these jobs, like you're describing, they're kind of starting to the markets are starting to shift towards more online broadcasting, as opposed to just traditional TV broadcasting, I think. And so, I mean, that to me is kind of the future of where that's going. I mean, you don't know if you have to be a camera guy for 10 years and be a part of the broadcast and know people, and then eventually an opening comes up and you say, hey, that's actually my true passion, and I know about this stuff, I know how to work all this stuff, and that's how you get your opportunity. I can't say how it's going to happen or how I'm going to get the job, but I'm not going to give up. Okay. All right, well, thanks for talking to us today, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Alvin Community College Radio. I'm John Tompkins. To read these stories and more, visit alvincollege.edu.